And today, we have two folks that always go beyond the call of duty, and today especially, they're showing up for the radio show after probably a very busy week. It's the EMS department from the Pagosa Springs Medical Center. Jason Webb, director, and Connie Cook, deputy chief. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning,
Will.
Welcome back.
Pagosa.
You guys are so good to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Yeah,
you're right. It is cold.
Right. It's been cold for a long time. It seems. And the snow's beautiful. It's thick and it's good. You know, the skiing's great and all that. But trying to stay warm every morning. It's just like, really?
Still winter.
Anyway, so great to see you guys, and you've been busy. Tell us what's been happening at EMS.
We've had lots of activity going on. Will, recently the Winterfest celebration that happened, that caused a lot of work for us, and we're happy to do it. But we had standby ambulances at both Ski Jor and the Penguin Plunge, and we're happy to report nobody got any major injuries. But we needed to be there for sure. And then, normal winter operations here, just trying to take care of everybody in the community while the roads are icy and it's snowing out and cold.
Yeah, how do you dress for this?
Layers.
There you go. Yep. Base layer, middle layer, top layer.
Everybody goes out prepared because you never know. You might be in somebody's house that they've got the heat cranked up, or you might be out on the side of the road at a motor vehicle accident. So you got to kind of be ready for anything.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, the other day one of my guys pulled out 7 hot pads. You know, those little hot hand warmers that you shake, and they were all in their pockets trying to stay warm that way.
I can't remember. Anything that works, right?
That's right.
Pragmatic about this.
Yep.
That's
so funny because, Connie, when we first moved here, it was like 23 years ago, and you were working at Summit, right? So you're still, figuring out how to, how to do the layering. And you had your Green Bay Packers hat on.
Oh, yeah. I still have that.
You still have that? That's
probably
funny.
The exact same one, too.
Really? Boy. Well, anyway, so, and you guys... you're probably at pirate sports events too, and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
or anything
we do football games, the varsity football games, pretty much whatever they ask of us, we'll go down and be part of. We did do some things with like some CPR, first aid with both the high school and the middle school in the past, teaching some of their athletic programs how to provide CPR in the event of an emergency, and how to activate 911 so that we can get there and already have things in motion, and they've been great to work with, the whole school system.
Wow. Thursday night rodeos.
Oh, yeah. Yep, Thursday night rodeos.
The list is rather big. So,
and these are just, this is, after you hear the scanner going upstairs right now, so that's your regular job, but these are kind of extra things that you do for the community.
That's right. And we really focus on those, and we feel it's important that we're there and that we support all the businesses and
quick response and
non-response nonprofits, all the organizations. We try to support the events, and we've even done weddings this year. We had a pretty large wedding that was down south in kind of a remote area. It was very beautiful. But they asked to have an ambulance there, and so we were able to work that out for them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of ambulance, do you have a new ambulance or several, or what are we operating with now? And it's with the medical center. You guys are part of the medical center, which is unique too.
That's super unique, and I think Connie and I looked at the list the other day. I think there's 7 or 8. Hospital-owned ambulance services. Years ago, the hospitals all owned ambulances, but there's a lot of costs that go with running an ambulance, and so many of them throughout the country have transitioned to other structures, whether that be county-based or fire-based, or even their own ambulance special districts. But we're very proud to be owned by the Pagosa Springs Medical Center. And we definitely want the community to know that. Many people think we do work with the fire department, and we do work closely with them.
We share space, we share land.
Yeah, we even share a parking lot with them, but we are owned by the medical center, and that's a very good thing for this community. That allows us to really work with physicians who are the experts in healthcare, and they're the ones that point us in the direction of what we should be doing in various emergencies. And I think it's really a cool thing that this community has, is a hospital-based ambulance service owned by the medical center.
And the medical center remaining independent is also something that's becoming more and more of a rarity. A lot of the smaller critical access hospitals are being absorbed by larger systems. And looking at that list in Colorado of the hospital-based EMS services, most of those, the majority of those are bigger systems. So, you know, Denver Health, UC Health, what's one of the other big, Banner. So those are some really big conglomerate healthcare systems that are also running ambulance services. And that makes it harder even for us as a small entity to absorb the costs of being ready 24/7, 365. That's really where a big chunk of the cost comes for EMS in general. We might run 100 calls, but we may only be able to bill for 60 of those calls, and the other ones are calls such as these standby services, a standby for law enforcement or fire, or, you know, somebody sees something they think is an emergency, we go and there's not really a patient there, or the patient refuses transport. All of those things are things that we spend money to be ready for, but that we cannot recoup our costs on. And so being able to remain independent as the Pagosa Springs Medical Center has, and operate us, and be very happy to do that, which we're very thankful for. They're very supportive of the department, and we're very grateful for that. So we're keeping the eye on that independence and being able to remain the Pagosa Springs Medical Center and the EMS service that goes along with that.
Well, what else? We talked about ambulances that were just about through January. So. Well,
you were asking too how many we have. So we have 5 ambulances total. Our newest one came in 2020.
Yeah. Okay.
And we are currently writing a grant through the state for a new one that we hope to take possession of in 2024. That's our idea. And all of these newer ambulances have an innovative safety concept design, which is much safer for the providers and safer for the patients, in that it's safer for the providers, so we don't become those projectiles in the back of an ambulance that then, hurt our patients.
Yeah, I always wonder, what's it like doing your business back there?
You get really good at finding your balance
you
and
get
being able
at
to.
All, or car
sometimes.
Many
honestly,
people do actually when they first
try. Window to look out.
There is in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Backwards.
Yeah, you're riding backwards.
I tell people, if you've ever, back in the day, it's definitely frowned upon now, but stood in the back of a moving pickup truck. That's kind of what it's like.
Yeah, because the G-forces are a little greater there than they are in the center.
Yeah.
You think the roads are bumpy in your POV? Get in the back of one of those puppies, and I'll tell you what, you feel everything probably twice as hard, or if not more.
Seriously.
So all those potholes and those rough roads out there right now are it's
noticeable.
Yeah, very noticeable. So we're really excited and hope that our grant is successful. The state grant, it's the EMTS provider grant that CDPHE puts out, and it's a 50% match. And so we'll be probably doing some fundraising as we move forward, if we get approved for that, to raise the other half of the ambulance cost.
What was the cost, Connie?
$260 is somewhere in that. $260,000 in that ballpark, and then there's another $30,000 for the power load system, which is an automated loading system for the gurney. So when there's a patient on it, it saves the backs of the providers, and that we can get it locked into the mechanism and then push a button versus having to, lift and push into the ambulance. And back injuries are one of the top injuries seen in the EMS workforce, and it takes people out not only on work comp, but completely out of the game sometimes.
So it's like a truck lift on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little mechanism that is mounted into the floor of the ambulance, and you lock it in, you lock your gurney in, and then you push buttons on the gurney, and it lifts up the legs, and then you just push it in to the back of the ambulance. Nice. So that'll be the third one that we have with that mechanism.
Now, do they have four-wheel drive, these rigs?
All of them.
Yeah, we definitely use that quite a bit as of late. We have another thing I wanted to point on that is that all of our new ambulances that we've talked about over the last few years are built with an aluminum frame. And the reason for that is so that we can remount them. So when the chassis wear out, the pickup trucks of it, because it's a big box that's fabricated and put on a large truck. So once the truck wears out, we can actually lift that box off the back of the ambulance and put it on a new chassis, ultimately causing it to be cheaper moving forward once we get to the place where we're recycling our ambulances, which we're not quite there yet, but it's coming. And
of course, yeah, these things wear out, or the technology changes, whatever. Yeah. So
with a cost of $260,000,
you want to manage that. Right?
Getting any percentage that's better is a good thing for our community.
Trying to be good stewards of our resources.
Yeah,
so.
Very good. So that's coming up in 2024.
Yep, that's the hope. The grant application is due February 15th, and then we usually hear sometime in June if we've been awarded what we've asked for, and then we'll get in line. Product supply chains have been everybody's kind of thorn in their side, and so our ambulance vendor seems pretty confident that we should be able to get a chassis into the rotation in late 2023, with the build taking place early 2024 and us taking possession hopefully sometime mid-2024.
So with the match, does that mean you kind of want to show community support to the EMTS group?
Yes.
So that, oh, look, we can raise this much, and then they chime in with the 50%, and then you're there.
Yep, that's, when we write the grant, I've had to get letters of support, and everybody in this community is so supportive. I've gotten already letters from the fire department, the sheriff, the town, our medical director, the director from the dispatch center is writing one, and so those letters of support really go a long way in showing that there is community support for this project. And then in the past, we've had overwhelmingly positive responses to our fundraising for our ambulances, and so for that, we are very grateful to this community.
And just hearing the scanner, day in, day out, week in, week out, it's just like those things are put to use. Like,
man.
I don't know how many, what do you call them?
Runs, calls for service.
Okay,
we had 2,131 calls in 2022.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's just for the ambulance. There's plenty of other calls that are law enforcement calls or fire-specific calls, but that's the number of calls we went on.
2,000?
Yeah.
Something?
2,131. Yeah, the highest ever. We tied with 2021. Believe it or not, we had the exact same number of runs.
Really?
When December 31st at 11:59 rolled around, I had to double check my math because I was like, wait a minute, can that really be? But it was, and the trend is upward. So we have yet to fall back. And so we're looking, 2023 has already started out with a bang. We're at over 130 calls already just for this month, and it's only the 27th. So, yeah.
So that basically is 6 calls a day.
Yep, that's about right. And some days we wish it was
actually
average out
like
that way. Some days
minutes.
it's 12 calls a day, and some days it's 2 calls a day. So the spreading out of it is not something that we can schedule or predict. So some days seem really, really busy, and then other days seem fairly mellow, and then you get those days where you actually do get that average of 6, and it feels pretty good. We are also...
That's what you're built for, kind of thing.
Yeah. We're headed towards 3 full crews every day, which will help spread that out as well, because our transport times are a lot longer than city-based systems. For us, a 10-minute turnaround time is pretty rare. That's like going to City Market and running a call, or somewhere right there in that core area where we are. Whereas
but you're going to Wolf Creek.
1,800 square miles, and so we could be all the way down in Chromo. We could be all the way up on Wolf Creek Pass at the ski area. We could be all the way out on Yellow Jacket Pass, and those are, typically I think our average run time is almost an hour. Wow. When you take all of the runs that we do and then you average out the time spent. And so 3 crews to spread that out definitely puts us in a position to be able to respond whenever the call comes out.
Mm-hmm. Wow, very good. Well, oh, you know what? It's already 8:20. Well, we've got more to talk about. Why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk more with the Pagosa Springs Medical Center, EMS, Jason Webb, Director, Connie Cook, Deputy Chief. Stay tuned, folks. We're going to check on that weather. Good Morning Pagosa's brought to you by ABBA Eye Care this morning. All right. Thanks, Jim. It's -2. But we have sunny skies. It's a nice-looking morning. We're back with more with PSMC. And it's almost February and Valentine's Day and all that. So we're going to talk a little bit about American Heart Month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's going to start? Jason? Connie?
Sure. Every year there's a focus on various different types of illnesses that happen, in February being Heart Month. We wanted to focus a little bit about that. Heart emergencies are a big deal for an ambulance service or really anybody that is in healthcare. It's one of the leading causes of death in the nation, and haven't made a whole lot of progress on decreasing it, although we do know who is at risk for it, and we've definitely built some systems that are good at responding to it.
Yeah, and that's key, right? The quick response.
The quick response is thing. Recognition is key. So let's start off, I guess, with who's at risk for it. So as you age, you automatically inherit some risk to heart disease as you get older. The key number is typically 55, but actually American Heart Association indicates that after 35 you start developing risk. Along with that are other things that physicians worry about and that usually get managed in a primary health clinic, which is diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and anybody that's had a genetic history of heart disease, all are at risk for having heart problems. And so we have a system in place to manage that. There's many people in our community that fall into those categories, and
right.
We work really hard to try to prevent that with our primary care team, which is awesome at the medical center. And that's where it all starts. Being engaged with your primary care is probably the best way to avoid having a heart emergency. But if it ends up happening, we have an amazing emergency medical services as well as an emergency department to manage a heart attack, what we call a myocardial infarction, or the common name for that is a heart attack. So the big thing that we want people to recognize, where we see it the most in EMS, is that they start developing some symptoms, which typically is chest pain, shortness of breath, some nausea, vomiting, maybe some sweating. And a lot of times people will compare it to maybe they have some indigestion, or maybe they feel like they pulled a muscle. Many times it happens maybe even after shoveling, like in the wintertime. Yeah, really. And so they start developing some symptoms, and in their mind they don't want to accept that it could be something bad. That's the first thing that we want to tell people. If you're starting to feel something uncomfortable in your chest and it doesn't go away in a relatively quick period of time, a few minutes, you should be activating us. Definitely not driving yourself to the hospital, because if the heart is stressed, and basically a heart attack is the main blood vessels are clogged up in the heart. And so if you took a rubber band around your hand really super tight, what would your hand feel like after 30 minutes? Well, that's what's happening to your heart. And so it puts you at risk for lethal arrhythmias. And so you definitely don't want to be driving. If you have this going on, you want to call 911, because we're going to send out some of the best trained people I know, some of the smartest people I know, in which they're going to come into your house and evaluate what is going on. And they're very good at evaluating if you're having what we call the big one, or otherwise the heart attack. You know what I mean? The big one. They're going to come in, they're going to put some stickers all over your chest, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, they're going to take your blood pressure and your heart rate and all that stuff, and we're able to tell whether somebody's having a heart attack or not. And from that point, we can go grossly in two different directions based on the information we find. But if you are having one, you're going to notice all of us moving with some purpose, and we're going to get moving and get you in the ambulance and get you going to one of the health systems.
What, is there a percentage of false alarms on that, or just, I don't even want to think about that?
You know, in our world, we always worry about the worst. Yeah. So even if it's not obvious right there, or like a false alarm like you're talking about, we're going to assume that the worst is what's happening, and we're going to treat you that way until you get you to an emergency department where they have a lot of other tools that can help confirm whether or not you're having a heart attack or not. But if you're having the big one, most of the time it's pretty obvious. Yeah.
You know, and with women's health, so women experience heart attacks a little differently sometimes than men do. So those classic symptoms of like crushing chest pain and radiating down the left arm, don't always tell the story. Women have very subtle symptoms sometimes, and so it can be like a pain in the shoulder, which, we're going to attribute to stress probably most of the time, of just like, I got a crick. Maybe just some mild malaise, or just a little bit of like getting winded easier. So, subtle. And if you know your body, which goes along with that primary care, really getting in tune with your, day-to-day baseline body feeling, and just knowing that something doesn't feel right, something is off. And I can tell you that as a clinical provider, when I'm in the field, that's usually the thing that really flips that red flag for me, is somebody that might not look super sick when I first see them, but they tell me, they look me in the eye and tell me something's not right, and something is different. And you can tell that they mean business. And that's where, okay, we're going to, again, move with a little more purpose, because while we have great diagnostic tools in the field, there's a lot more of them in the emergency department. We're always going to err on the side of being more conservative and say, let's go get you checked out. Hopefully everything's fine, and this is, just something, that's not a big deal, but just in case, let's go get checked out.
Oh, yeah.
And so for that recognition and signs and symptoms of women, all the men in your life, make sure that they can understand those things, and that you're also willing to put yourself up there on the priority list and say, you know what, I don't feel good, and I need to go in. So,
I noticed Angela put file for life. I think she means flight for life.
No, file for life. So these are things that we give out at a lot of the community events that we do, and it's a printed little piece of paper that fits into an envelope that you can put on a magnet on your refrigerator. And so it's cardstock printed paper that takes your medical history, all your medications, allergies, your demographic information, emergency contact information, so that if we are activated and you're unable to give us that information when we get on scene, we always can go look on the refrigerator just to see if that file of life is there. And then if we pull that out, we have a huge wealth of knowledge there on your medical history, so that we can look for things like allergies and make sure we're not treating you with a medication that might have an adverse reaction. We can look at what your history is to try to put the pieces together to see what might be going on. And so anytime we're out and about in the community doing things, always come find us. We'll hand those out. File of life, if you want one and you can't find us, just give us a call over at the station, 731-5811, and we'll be happy to hand those out for you. We've got hundreds of them. So,
okay.
One of the other things that we were talking about when we were putting this together was access. So if you've activated 911, and everybody knows how the snow removal has gone over the last month, and it's hard to keep up with. That's really good information to tell dispatch when you're calling in that maybe your driveway isn't plowed, or what the conditions of the roads are, because our ambulances are not sports cars. They're also not Unimogs. So, yeah, we can't just get into anywhere. We have to be very thoughtful about our ability to get in, but also to get out, and what other resources we might need to make sure we can make patient contact in a timely fashion and get a patient extricated. And so that's good information for us to have. And then also making sure that your address signs are easily read and readable. So if they're buried, if they're on the ground and maybe they're getting buried by snow, making sure those are clear. Getting those bright green with the white lettering and numbering signs and putting those in a very visible spot from the road really helps us. There's a lot of different places in town where we go, and we're spending time searching for address numbers, and people are wondering why we're not there yet, and sometimes that's the reason.
ED, what's that?
Emergency department.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just highlight what would happen. So, as Connie was talking about, so once we recognize in the field and we get somebody to the hospital, we're going to be moving with purpose. What happens at the ER? What's their role? So the ER helps us confirm, is somebody having a heart attack or not, or having a heart emergency? And like Connie said, there's a lot of other tools they have to help figure that out, mostly within blood work. But there's a big key decision that needs to be made that's timely. And so there's two routes that you can fix a heart attack. One is you go what's called a cath lab, which a cardiologist basically goes in through your groin and roto-rooters your heart to try to open that up. Or another way to do it is that we have clot-busting agents in our ER. In this small town, that's kind of crazy. Those are typically drugs that are given in very large institutions, but we have them at the medical center here. And it's a big decision to make, and our ER doctors, who are very qualified and do a great job, they're the ones that make that decision whether or not we're going to put the patient back in the ambulance and drive them down to Mercy, which is our closest cath lab, or they're going to give that medicine, that clot-busting medicine. But either way, whatever direction it goes, time is of the essence, and that's what I hope all the listeners here today is that the longer this goes on, the possibility that the worse it could get. So the quicker you can jump on it, the better.
So, the medical center has a great primary care department, and you can always call to this is for preventative, go to your primary care practitioner, and they could be there at the medical center, 970-731-3700.
Correct.
And what's their role in heart health?
It's mostly the prevention side of it. That's the key to it. It's probably the most important part of it. We have this very robust system in place to respond if it happens, but really the best game is to make it not happen. And a lot of people view primary care as more as I go there for a sore throat or because I have a headache or maybe I've got maybe I've got COVID or something, and they go for help, and that's all appropriate. But primary care also is good at looking at risk factors and helping you come up with a plan that might decrease your cholesterol, decrease your blood pressure, decrease your stress in your life, get you more active. All those things have been shown in very clear data that they improve overall well-being, and they limit the ability for heart attacks to happen if you get those under control. And really, it's primary care's role, along with Dr. Lambert, who is our cardiologist down there at the medical center. He works with people that do have histories of heart issues, but they work together to make sure those factors are limited.
Awesome. What a team.
Yeah.
Very much so.
They're a great group, for sure.
How are we doing? We covered a lot.
We did cover a lot.
So we're running out of time, and really appreciate you guys stopping by this morning on a cold winter morning here, and I know you're busy, so I should probably let you go.
No.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks again.
Thanks for having us, Will.
And thank you, Pagosa, for your continued support for the Pagosa Springs Medical Center and especially our EMS service.
Very good. Thanks, Connie and Jason. Have a great day, great weekend. We'll see y'all later.
Thanks, Will.
Okay.